Stories Philippines Podcast.
A darkness permeates this episode, touching on scenes and themes some may find deeply unsettling. Vigilance is a necessity as we navigate these shadows. The moon hangs, a chipped fingernail in the black velvet sky, casting shadows that crawl backwards like some unholy thing. Listen closely. Can you hear the sound? It is the low, wet, smacking sound of something chewing in the dark. A sound that should belong to a starving dog, but carries with it a sickening rhythm of the unnatural. It is not just the sound of a beast feeding, it is the sound of legend turning into reality, of the primal fears of the deep forest being uploaded into the digital glow of a computer screen. In the year 2005, the world was shrinking. The Philippines, already a place where the old ways and new technologies constantly rubbed against one another, was now alight with the faint blue glow of a million monitors. Suddenly, the secrets whispered in remote villages were being typed out on online forums, shared on nascent social media pages, and passed around in panic chain email. The ancient four-legged cryptid of the Visayas, the Sigbin, was no longer confined to the darkness of the cane fields or the shade of the great balete tree. It was now haunting the information highway, its legend evolving, its terror multiplying in the fertile ground of the early internet. What happens when a creature of folklore, a blood-sucking, goat-like entity said to walk backwards and steal the life essence of the unsuspecting finds a new home in the global village? Its nature, already murky, becomes even more confused. It is part aswang, part vampire, part chupacabra, and now a virus of the mind that spreads through broadband connections. This is the story of how the Sigbin, an echo from the archipelago's darkest past, found its footing in the digital age. This is the story of the fear that follows you home, whether you walk a dirt path or click a link. I am Paul, and you're listening to Stories Philippines podcast. And the fear that the Sigbin embodies is not a modern invention. It is a slow, cold fear that has been incubating in the archipelago for centuries, tied intrinsically to the concepts of sorcery, spiritual pacts, and the price of power. To understand the fear of the Sigbin in a 2005 online forum, we must first look back to the wooden houses and shadowed clearings where its legend was first born. In the southern islands, particularly the Visayas and Mindanao, the Sigbin is often a footnote in a much larger, terrifying chapter of the Aswang. The aswang is a collective term, a shape-shifting horror that could be a flying creature, a dog, a pig, or a beautiful human during the day. The Sigbin, however, is rarely the master. It is the servant, the pet, the tool of the dark practitioner. This distinction is crucial. It means the true threat is not the monster itself, but the powerful, malevolent human will that directs it. Consider the narrative shared by JLC from General Santos City, recounting a great-grandmother, a Lola Linda, who possessed a Sigbin. The old woman was known as a traditional healer who, in many parts of the Philippines, walks a precarious line between folk medicine and folk magic. The healer who can fix a body can also curse it. This dual nature is a source of intense cultural anxiety. Lola Linda's household, though not wealthy, was filled with a constant unsettling presence, proven by the vanishing squash and charcoal. This peculiar diet of the Sigbin, squash and charcoal, is a classic talismanic requirement. It is not a nutritional need. It is a symbol of the spiritual contract. Squash or kalabasa is often seen as a protective or symbolic food in some areas, and its disappearance suggests the Sigbin is consuming the ordinary to maintain its extraordinary existence. Charcoal or burnt wood is inert, yet it is a pure form of carbon, symbolically linked to the earth and perhaps the life essence of things. The need for these mundane objects gives the creature a strange domestic quality that makes the horror more intimate. It lives not in a distant cave, but in the backyard, under the house, quietly feeding on the garden's produce and the household's fuel. This domestic terror is amplified by the belief that such a familiar is a burden of the soul. JLC's story concludes with the horrifying fate of a young cousin. The great-grandmother, at 102 years old, could not pass away peacefully until she transferred her stone of power to a new host. The cousin, a toddler, was found laughing and sitting next to the lifeless body of Lola Linda, who had grown younger in death, a subtle suggestion that the child's vitality had been taken in the exchange. The ritualistic nature of the transfer, the sudden death of the elderly sorceress, and the inevitable enslavement of the child, all of this demonstrates that the Sagvin is the endpoint of a terrifying generational curse, one passed down not through blood, but through dark intent. The creature itself is a symptom of a deeper spiritual malignancy. The story shared by Luna about her Mambabaran great-grandfather echoes this transfer of power. The old man, living high in the mountains of Samar, was attended by a giant, dog-like creature, the Sigbin, until the end. His black magic tools and oils had to be buried with him to ensure his rest, and even after his death, the Sigbin lingered, returning to the family home as a foul, fishy odor. Luna's mother would chase the stench away with a broomstick, commanding it to leave, a clear sign that the family knew they were dealing not with a simple ghost, but a persistent, personalized entity of sorcery. In this context, the Sigbin is the physical manifestation of the occult economy, the trade of human suffering for unnatural power. This Filipino folklore does not exist in isolation. Across history and cultures, the concept of the familiar spirit, an animal that serves a witch or sorcerer, is a universal thread in the narrative of dark magic. During the European witch trials of the 16th and 17th centuries, the persecution was often focused on the small, unassuming creatures found in a suspected witch's house: cats, toads, mice, or birds. These animals were seen not as pets, but as demons in disguise, suckling on their master or mistress to gain the strength to do their bidding. The infamous black dog of English and Celtic folklore, a creature often linked to dark omens and the devil, bears a striking if distant resemblance to the Sigbin. The difference, however, is one of utility. The European familiar was often a symbolic servant. The Sigbin is a predator with specific horrific needs. The attacks described by the listeners focus on blood draining, a clear parallel to the vampire mythos, but with a unique regional twist. The creature's preference for the newborn or the sick, as seen in Rele's mother's account from Tagum City in 1991, where infant deaths were attributed to the boarding house owner's Sagbin, is a cultural touchpoint that resonates with the fear of the aswang who preys on the vulnerable. Audrey's story of her baby brother being bit on the neck by a Sigbin during a blackout and suffering a strange sickness that only an albulayo could diagnose is a powerful, modern example of this specific ancient fear. The three distinct dots on the baby's neck, the Sigbin signature, became irrefutable proof to the family that a primal force was at work. The movement of Audrey's family, leaving their home for 2 hours away to escape the creature, believing a new carpenter in the neighborhood was its master, shows how these legends act as a social mechanism to explain the random cruelty of disease and death. In the absence of full medical understanding or police intervention, the Sigbin provides a terrifying but manageable explanation. The evil is concentrated in a person, a manggagawa or sorcerer who can be identified and avoided. Of all the creature's attributes, its backward gait is the most psychologically disturbing. Why would an apex predator move in reverse? Psychologically, this inversion is a powerful tool for generating primal fear. The world is built on forward motion, progress, and clearly defined direction. A creature that defies this natural order is an anti-emin, a being that belongs to an inverted reality. As the criminology student Esquera Lee experienced, the sight of a creature moving towards you while facing away is an impossible thing that shatters rational thought. Her advice, based on local knowledge, to keep a light shining behind you because the Sigbin targets the unobserved backside, suggests an entity that relies on the natural vulnerability of not having eyes in the back of one's head. It preys on the unattended moment. Mark's encounter in the subdivision, seeing the creature crawling backward at an unnatural speed near an abandoned house, underscores this terror. His initial disbelief was overridden by the visceral, immediate panic of seeing something fundamentally wrong with the universe. The Sigbin does not just look like a monster, it moves like a nightmare. This movement links the Sigbin to another deep-seated cultural fear, the inability to truly see and understand the threat. Kira, whose father had second sight, describes the Sigbin as an animal that is nakatsuwad or bent over, requiring the victim to look backward to see its face. This literal inversion of perception makes the act of seeing it a perilous choice. Do not look at the eyes, the legend warns, or you will be dragged into another world or lose your sanity. The choice is terrifying. Turn and face the monster, risking madness, or run forward, knowing it is gaining on you while facing away. This element of impossible speed and unnatural motion also appears in the story of Miss Maldita, whose childhood experiences were a cycle of supernatural disturbances. Her encounter with 3 cute white puppies that led her astray, only to vanish when she was found, were later identified as Sigbin. The cuteness, the deceptive appearance of the creature's young is a classic folkloric trap. It is the bait that leads the victim to the edge of the spiritual wilderness. Later, the memory of her friend's vomit being instantly consumed from a squash patch in a backyard, explained by her relative with a chilling, "You are here again!" a familiar greeting for a regular unwelcome visitor, brings the creature back to its bizarre, mundane needs. The doppelganger incident, where Miss Maldita's cousin saw a mute favorite food-eating copy of her while she was asleep, suggests the Sigbin can project itself or an illusion, blurring the line between physical presence and spiritual impersonation. The Sigbin, therefore, is a creature that operates at the edge of human perception, a trickster predator that forces its victims into a state of cognitive dissonance, making them doubt the evidence of their own senses. In the year 2005, the Sigbin found its most potent breeding ground, the online forum. Prior to the internet, stories like these required a traveler, a merchant, or a returning relative to cross large geographic distances, a slow process of diffusion. The internet removed this barrier, allowing the regional legends of Mindanao to instantly infect the anxieties of Luzon. The forum threads and chain emails mentioned in the listener accounts became the new spiritual wilderness. Instead of a dark forest, the danger was now a screen that glowed late at night. The anonymity of the forum allowed people to share their deepest, most shameful fears without the risk of being labeled insane by their immediate neighbors. The posts were raw, personal, and profoundly unsettling. The initial forum debate in Pangasinan about the slaughtered livestock, Sigbin, chupacabra, or human criminals shows the confusion inherent in the early digital age. The internet brought international context, like the chupacabra, a similar blood-draining entity from Puerto Rico and the Americas, into direct competition with the local Sigbin. This is folklore blending in real time. The internet provided the tools to compare characteristics, debate names, and create a hyper-mythology that was more potent than any single local legend. The account from Miss Lonera, a forum member in the present day, perfectly illustrates the digital life cycle of the Sigbin. She describes the creature coming to her province, its ears flapping like applause, a bizarre auditory detail that quickly went viral in the online space, and her frantic search on Google for its appearance and habits. Her grandfather's solution to the problem, putting up lights and then deliberately not putting up lights to see if the creature would return, demonstrates the unique, experimental nature of fear in the modern age. Folklore, once static, becomes a dynamic problem to be solved, debated, and documented online. This digital sharing also serves a vital cathartic function. People like Miss Loner, who are terrified to even use the bathroom alone, find community and validation in the shared fear of the forum. The very act of typing out their story, of submitting it to a podcast, is a way of externalizing the dread, transforming a personal nightmare into a public narrative. The Sigbin then is no longer just a monster of the provinces. It is a testament to the enduring power of ancient fear in a hyper-connected world. It is the perfect chilling metaphor for the dangers lurking just beyond the edge of the screen, an old threat in a new medium. The stories of the Sigbin, from the quiet terror of the backwoods to the frantic glow of a modem screen, force a contemplation of the persistence of belief. Why do these legends survive, and what do they tell us about the human condition in the Philippines? The answer lies in collective trauma and the human need for explanation. The sudden, inexplicable death of a child, the sickness that defies a cure, the unbidden sense of pure ancient evil. These are the cracks in the world where the Sigbin steps through. By naming the horror, by saying, "It was a Sigbin, the sorcerer's familiar," a family can move past the paralyzing fear of the unknown and embrace a known enemy. The creature, ugly and terrifying as it is a form of spiritual order, a defined threat that can be fought with faith, a local healer, or simply a well-aimed broomstick. The experience of Lai, the 7th grader who was chased by what she first thought was a ghostly woman near a balete tree, only to flee from an entity that chased her and her friends, shows the power of shared immediate terror. The subsequent cutting down of the balete tree, a known dwelling place for spirits, is a clear act of cultural warfare against the forces of the dark. The memory of the event and the grandmother who helped her, who later died of cancer, linked the trauma to the painful reality of loss, creating a narrative where the supernatural and the mundane tragedy are inextricably linked. Ultimately, the Sigbin is the perfect cultural mirror. It reflects a society grappling with its own history of violence, occult practices, and deep spiritualism. It embodies the price of power, the danger of the unobserved path, and the chilling truth that some of the greatest horrors are those that are not wild but domesticated, kept close, cherished, and fed on the very lifeblood of the community. You may close your laptop, you may turn off your phone, but the chilling thought remains. Somewhere in the dark, a creature that defies the laws of nature is propelling itself backward, its red eyes scanning for an open door, a moment of weakness, or a piece of forgotten charcoal. The legend is not dead. It has merely adapted to the wiring of the 21st century, waiting for its next connection. The world is not just the things we can touch and measure. It is also the shadows on the wall, the sound in the alley, the things we see when we are all alone and vulnerable. We invite you to examine the evidence yourself. Find show notes and support options in the description of this episode. Access exclusive content on Patreon to hear more listener stories and extended analysis. Follow us on social media for daily folklore facts. And if you have witnessed the impossible, if you have looked into the glowing red eyes of the Sigbin or any other creature of the night, we want to hear your story. Submit your stories to our email, storiesphpodcast@gmail.com. The history of the Philippines is written not only in grand declarations, but also in the desperate whispers of fear. What dark familiar might be lurking in the digital shadows you visit every night? The scariest monsters are the ones that are real, the ones we know. Do not forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share this podcast. Support the podcast financially in ways you can find in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in to Stories Philippines podcast. We will be here waiting in the dark next time.